Skate or die. Psych up for 5 of the raddest skating events ever. And welcome to Nostalgia, a chronological exploration of every NES game released in North America. I'm Mike.
I'm Sean.
And I'm Sam.
Guys, there's a saying in video gaming called EA Sports. It's in the game. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yes, it's an old adage. I'm not sure the origin. That's lost to time.
That is lost to time. In fact, some say that was said before video games. That Electronic Arts actually just said, like, wow, that's such a familiar saying to us. We're just going to include it in our sports games.
It's what kicked off the original Olympics in Greco-Roman time.
Yeah, it's what's for dinner.
Nice. Okay, we're all doing very good. We're all on hype levels here. And the reason I bring that up at all is because Skate or Die was Electronic Arts' first in-house game ever. The first developed by full-time employees. All prior EA titles had been done by independent contractors. So this is the people that brought you Mass Effect, right? Not really, though, because they published that one, too. But, you get the idea. At one point, they made the games.
So, wow, I didn't even realize that this was Electronic Arts. I didn't even see that in the little footer down there.
Well, you were expecting the E to come on to the left-hand side and then the A. Yeah. But it didn't happen. No, but yeah, this is an EA game. The thing is, though, Sean, more likely the reason you didn't see it on the game anywhere is because Konami did the porting here. So do we judge this as a EA game making a video game for the first time, or do we judge Konami because we love Konami games, or is it both of them are responsible?
I guess this is a Konami game.
I like Sam's idea. Why not both? Everyone should be held. In fact, Nintendo, right? They gave the seal of quality. We should always hold them responsible every episode.
I don't think that means anything. The seal. Not yet. It doesn't.
We've been burned too often.
It was on Deadly Towers, the seal. So you're right. There's always a chance for Nintendo to redeem themselves. I have usually a section for the overview / plot of the game. And I think the back of the box did a great job of just psych up for 5 of the raddest skating events ever. That's literally what you get. It's 5 skating events, 5 different kinds of skating events. Personally, I've watched the X Games, and even I didn't know there were 5 different types of skating events. Sam, you're our resident skateboarder. You want to just tell us what's going on in this game?
Yeah. So, for the record, I learned how to ollie in 7th grade, and that's about it.
It's about the same for me.
But so there's 5 different modes in this game, just like there are in real life. From races, which is just how fast can you complete this course, to freestyle on a half pipe, to a high jump on a half pipe, where you try and jump as high as you can, to a downhill jam, where you are fighting with your feet and fists other skaters,
and pool joust.
And I was saving pool joust.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There's who can forget the classic backyard game Pool Joust, where if you look in the manual, it says that it was a heated pool that they took the water out of. I don't know why it had to be heated.
Yeah.
But they specifically mentioned it's a heated pool, so you know it's nice.
However, not to interrupt here, but if you ever watch any episode of Rocket Power, you would assume that everybody's pools are always empty and that you can skate in them.
Jousting is when you and your opponent square off, and you each have 5 turns to go up and down either side of a pool, while holding one of those giant Q-tip jousters, and you have to try to knock over your opponent, and then after 5 up and downs, you switch, and then you try not to get knocked over. There's trash talk beforehand.
I love your entire assessment there, Sam, of the game, because I think you really laid out everything this game has to offer. There is just one thing, though. They could have been really lazy and done this Town and Country Surf Designs Wacky Water Rage or whatever it's called. I came close. But they could have done it like that and just had like a menu where you select the 5 skateboarding events and then you just go right into them. But this one has like, you start in a shop and it has a bunch of like neat little Easter eggs.
I love this. Yeah, this is my favorite select screen of any game we've had so far.
And then, you know, like there's like a hub outside that you have to skate to those events, right? So it's like you're on like a street and you can skate over to the left to get to Pool Joust or, you know, the Northwest to get to whatever's in the Northwest, you know? I know, you know, who am I to judge?
Northwest.
The Northwest is just to go to, that'll be.
Oh, that's all.
Yeah, that's just everything.
Everything, right.
No, my favorite thing about, I love this select screen. This is like, I know that games like Castlevania 2 had a version of this, but to me this is the first instance of flavor text I have seen in a game where it's just like you're just gonna mouse over, because there's a cursor on this screen. You're just gonna like mouse over this thing in the background, and there's gonna be like, yeah, this is the official jousting Q-tip of skateboarding, and just like, oh, this is really cool. And then actually navigating a menu in the way that you navigate the game was it's just so unique so far in how we've done it. So it's starting off on the right foot.
Yeah. And one other thing, when you're in the skate shop and you have the little cursor and you hover over the guy who's working there's face, he's like, what are you looking at?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that guy though is pretty scary, right? Is he supposed to be?
He's definitely an ex-Marine with PTSD.
Okay,
I think that's
yeah.
If you look at his tattoo, he says Semper Fi. He seems pretty angry about it. I mean, no offense to any of our veterans, but like just like how they have colored this guy's persona.
What's scarier than the way our country treats our veterans? So
there you go.
Tell me.
It's been said. And then here's another thing too. Inside the shop, you register your name, right? And you have to put your name in there. And we've never really had a game handled like this where you register your name first and then it just gets applied to every event afterwards. Usually you have to like set the high score, then be asked, register your name and put the initials in all over again. Here you get to do it up front. But not just like as like a we'll save you the time thing, but because you can register up to 8 people, and technically you and 7 friends can all play this game at once. You know, if you follow that logic of like everybody just stays to their assigned name, I'm on board with that.
I agree. It was interesting when I started reading the manual, which is a treat. If you ever read through it, there's a lot of lore. But when I opened the manual and I was looking at like the stages of the game and I saw sign in, and I'm like, are we playing like World of Warcraft? Are we playing any game as a service right now? It's like, no, you're playing an NES game from 1988. You have to sign in. I thought that was bizarre, but it's basically just like, yeah, that's the high score table before you play anything.
I think it's really cool because it makes it seem like you're signing up for a skate competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there is, that's like the compete mode where you register your names and everything like that, but there is also a practice mode, and without getting into any of the events or anything, I just want to call out that if you spend enough time with this game, you'll actually find out that practice mode is useless. Am I right, guys? Like, it doesn't actually do anything different than the compete mode, and the worst thing that can happen in compete mode is that your name doesn't go on the high score. But say you do something really good in practice mode, it will never count. So why not always do compete?
Don't you need to be playing with other people to play compete?
I didn't.
I don't
maybe
think so.
I didn't have other. Yeah, I always had computers. I thought you had to have people registered to play with other people. Like you have to register.
Yeah, that
names.
makes sense. That makes sense. Sorry, that was a dumb question.
No, it's okay. So you probably played in practice mode the whole time, though.
I played in practice mode the whole time because when I read the manual, I thought the compete was basically like the competitive multiplayer mode. So I played all the modes. I just didn't get to save any progress.
I got good news for you, though. You didn't do anything wrong. We played the same exact game, and that's why I'm saying, like, why even have the option? Like, it just seems strange.
Well, you don't have to sign in
That's
to do
true.
practice mode.
Signing in such a hassle, even when they let you do it up front.
Doesn't even save your password.
Sean, you mentioned that the overworld hub, if you will, the hub we'll call it because it's not really an overworld. The hub map when you leave the shop to go to those other places, it's definitely has a lot of style to it and it is thought out. But that is the moment for me where, in Sam's words, the jank. That's the moment I realize what kind of game we're playing. I go out, I exit the shop, and I immediately enter it right again. And I exit the shop, and I immediately enter it. I do not know how to steer on this skateboard because I didn't look at the manual first. But and obviously I did learn eventually. I had to play this game. But I'm making a joke here because it's true that it took me 3 tries of entering and exiting the shop before I was able to figure out, so the up arrow is actually the accelerate option on your skateboard.
So I didn't have the issue where I kept re-entering the shop. But it did take me a while to realize how to move at all. I was able to rotate, which is actually a step forward in my book from something like Surf Design, whatever, Rod of Rage. But no, that's what I mean to say here is that jank is definitely a spectrum, and if we're gonna compare it to that previous game with all the cool dudes and the monkey that could surf and skateboard, this is not as jank, but it definitely is jank.
The thing that bugs me the most about the jankiness of the controls is that each of the mini games has different controls. And so,
spot on.
The race game, for example, you have to hold A to turn, but that's not like that in any other one of the games. And you can't accelerate while holding A because then you'll jump. And then you duck when you hold down an A, but you can't speed up while you're holding A, so you have to get rid of it. It's just really bizarre the way that one works.
Yeah, I mean, you're pretty much having to relearn the game every single time because even if you get used to the feel of skating in that hub, once you go to a minigame, it has a little bit of a different logic to it. And so then you learn that, then you come back out to the hub and you're like, oh, right. Kind of a little different. Got to figure this one out. Get to the next thing. And it's like you're drunk. You just have a whole nother way of playing this one now. And I'm just shocked that it was never it could have been uniform, right? Why can't the A button, something that you actually have to press, be the thing that lets you accelerate? That's the kick of the foot onto the concrete. That feels more natural to me than
here's
the
what's funny about that is that you can tell that they were thinking about this because they have the you can choose between goofy and regular, and goofy and regular is actually a term in skateboarding, depending on how your footing is on a skateboard. I think goofy is you push with your front foot, and
no, that's
regulars,
Mongo.
Whichever. I don't fucking care.
I thought goofy was just that you're a lefty.
Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, it's just that you're lefty.
That's exactly what I meant to say. But so they're using terms in skateboarding to sort of explain are you going to play this as the directions are on your screen or as the directions are in relation to your character? I thought that if they're going to use this, it's sort of to fix the issue of keeping controls semi straightforward throughout each mode. It doesn't end up doing that, but I feel like the inclusion of that select screen tells us that they were at least trying to solve that problem, but it didn't really work.
I could agree with that. And, I do have a problem with inverted controls. I always need to make sure that games that I play have a setting to uninvert the controls because that's just how I grew up and that's just what I'm used to. So that's it's great that they gave an option for that, but it doesn't feel better for me either way. I did try both. And the problem that I had ultimately was just that I was wishing for an actual redesign of how this game would control that would still have to change because the events themselves, because their perspectives are different in certain scenarios of that. Like, I get it. The controls would have to change for each event regardless because it's a 2D game that's trying to simulate like some area of 3D depending on which event you choose.
Yeah.
But I need it to be a little more uniform because I ultimately like was having a really hard time switching in my brain between events, specifically with those the downhill race and downhill jam too. Like I just couldn't quite figure out speed versus control versus turning. Like,
well, there's also a difference. There are also weird differences in controls between modes of the same perspective. Like if you do downhill jam, I feel like that's the most straightforward of them. Like you get to choose whether you're going to go inverted or not, and then your controls are relatively 1-to-1 for a game that has some kind of momentum in it. And then if you do the downhill race, you have the most sluggish version of those controls. You have to like start steering like 100 meters prior to a turn. Like it just doesn't. There's no uniformity even between matches of the same view, which is weird. So I think jam was the easiest to control to me. Race was definitely no. The pool was the worst. But anyway, you're right. 100%. The controls are just weird for all of them.
For me, it was the high jump. I could not figure out how the heck you're supposed to jump. I looked it up in the manual, and it said to hold a direction and mash B. And so I would do that, and I figure you have to hold the direction you're going to build up speed, and then it says when you build up enough speed, you can press A to jump. And I just couldn't jump. I don't know how you do it.
Huh. Yeah, see, that's interesting, because I was able to, like, you know, spend enough time with each event to be able to actually do stuff in those events. I wouldn't say I was getting great scores or anything like that, but I wanted to make sure I could get that. And I think that's the difference between Skate or Die here and like something like Winter Games by Epix. Remember that one had that ice skating game that like none of us could even do anything. Like you'd hit the buttons and they just literally didn't work. I still don't believe that game was ever finished. This one is finished. It's just really hard to like wire your brain around all the different control methods. So, you know, I understand where you're coming from on the high jump thing. I think for me, that was the problem with the downhill races. Like I had that problem. And funny, Sean, that you mentioned pool joust, because that was simple enough that it was the one that I actually found to be the most fun.
That one was simple, but I feel like I could never hit the guy. I would go like in like just. I feel like my hitbox or my hurtbox was like non-existent. Huge. And well, my hitbox, I guess, was non-existent against the other guy. Like, my hits did nothing. I would go right in by the guy, and nothing would happen. And then he would come from whatever angle that's hard to tell.
On the first run.
Yeah.
So Winter Games to me felt like a game of QuickTime events without any of the prompts. Like there was only one way to complete that game, especially the ice skating portion, which was just like you have to do this sequence of inputs or you fail. Whereas to its credit, this game seems to actually be like you can perform in any number of ways and you may still do well in a completely different way than another player might do well, if that makes any sense. Like you're playing a game instead of inputting a specific sequence of button presses in Winter Games. But what I will say about the high jump is I had the same issue. So I started using the turbo. I was able to get a high jump if I was turboing. If I was just holding down that button that you have to tap down, I was able to do a high jump. But like if I was physically pressing the button like as fast as I could, I couldn't get any air regardless. So I'm sort of in Sam's boat on that in that sense. But I also agree with Sam on the pool portion as well.
Sure. And I think the problem with the pool one comes down to the fact that you pretty much have to, and maybe this is the way that it's supposed to be because like I really don't know how many more options they would have, but you have to make your decision on where you're going to go in the pool before you ever see where your opponent is going to go. So it kind of comes down to like rock, paper, scissors, right? Where you really only have the choice between, the left side of the pool, the center, and the right side. You can't change that course when you're actually like in the pool enough to make it matter.
Yeah, you have a very small amount of input.
So you're essentially playing a game of chicken rather than joust, because you have to say like, okay, I don't think he's going to go here, so I'm going to go on that side. And, that could be fun if you're playing with another person. It's not as rewarding when you're playing with computer because you feel like they know your inputs,
Yeah,
like
they
that,
do.
And they probably do. Yeah, you're right. But I'm just saying like, it doesn't feel as good that way. It's just, I felt like it was a game that I could play. That's what I'm looking for in Skate or Die right now is which modes can I actually like spend some time in and feel like they're working and use them. And Pool Joust was one of those. Freestyle was another one though. I enjoyed the freestyle.
Freestyle was the best version of this game because it almost felt like a 2D Game Boy version of Tony Hawk. Because like you did have different moves that you could do depending on your input. Obviously it's just like the half pipe, but it actually it felt much more like a trick doing game, unlike previous versions of skateboarding that we've played, which is just stay on the skateboard.
Yeah, it's weird that they associate like skateboarding with obstacle courses, though, right? That's I'm like not calling out this game specifically.
Because as somebody that was introduced to skateboarding through the Tony Hawk games, like that is the version of the sport that I know. Like there are very familiar moves like stalls and grinds and spinning in the air that you have to make sure that you stop spinning when you're like perpendicular with the actual vert ramp. Like that was the closest thing that I knew, so I enjoyed that the most. I know that you only had like 10 trips up and down, so that kind of sucked. But I guess like there really isn't all that much to do. But again, it just felt the best to me. Like there is there's a good amount of momentum. Like when you're finally in that mode, that makes the game have that feel of you're actually freestyling. So that's what I liked about it.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, that mode to me, I have almost no complaints about. I can't imagine how else you would handle a freestyle on the NES, like I'm not adding any additional hardware or anything like that. I feel like this got that right. And the only thing I would want, because I always do this to games, I'm not saying it's a valid complaint, is just a little more forgivingness from the game on like how you land on the half pipe, because you have to, in order for it to land, sometimes you have to be like very I don't want to say perfect, but like perpendicular to the actual half pipe itself. And I feel like you could be a little bit to the left or right and still like land
sloppy landing.
Yeah, I feel like you could get away with that.
Yeah.
So that's what I would ask for.
I think part of it is the way that they designed the way that you spin. It's like you start pressing a directional button, and that's like you decide what direction you're going to spin, but then you have to like press A to stop. You stop in the middle of the air, and it's not like you stop holding down the spinning button. So it's definitely very unintuitive, but I think that kind of contributed to how sloppy we were, because I definitely fell down a lot too. But this is the only part of the game where it felt like skateboarding to me. The rest were just like weird, like they were just weird
mini games
that were not the sport.
Mm-hmm. What, you guys don't joust?
I mean, I know that there is a high jump, and it kind of works the same way that it did in this game, at least from the X games that I've seen. But the rest is, I haven't seen jousting.
You don't joust and then trade off?
Yeah, I haven't seen that in the X games.
The thing for the freestyle that bugged me, there were two things. One was on the left side, how there's that little ramp that takes you into it. that I think if you touch that, then you fall automatically. If you try and like do a certain kind of trick on that, you'll just fall, which I think is really annoying because there's not a lot of space on that side in that case.
Yeah.
And also grinding. If you grind too close to the edge, then you'll just immediately fall anyway.
That's true.
And I felt like that could have been more forgiving. Like it could have, if you go to the edge, I feel like it should have just let you come back in, instead of just fall at the edge. That's just
I
me.
agree. Yeah.
Do you think you should have been able to like earn something in the compete mode for performing well in this game that you could then like go back to the shop and purchase like a new color for your board or hairstyles or something? Like I know that that's silly, but
like
if you have
a video,
sure, yeah, an NES drawn Bales video, I like that.
Or just a trophy.
A trophy, yeah. Or even the things that he has in the shop already, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it'd be a nice touch. It doesn't break the game for me at all, but it's something I thought about where I was like, well, it's weird. You have a shop, but all you do there is really, like, register and get some cute Easter eggs. Like, all right.
Or if the guy says
that's
something
fine.
different, I think that'd be cool. The guy's like, all right, you're okay.
Yeah. If you score, like, really well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like the long-term enjoyment of this game depends on if you have anybody to play against.
And if they're both able to play it, though, too, Sean. Like, you gotta think about it. If your friend comes over and he doesn't own Skate or Die at his house, you're spending a lot of time teaching him how to play the freaking game first.
Or you're just spending a lot of time whooping his ass.
Yeah, and give him the Mad Catz controller while you're at it.
Yeah.
Okay, one thing, musings from the manual here, because you mentioned that the manual is a trip. I like this line that says, if you like Skate or Die, drop us a line and we'll see that the nurses read it to the developers.
Oh, I didn't read that part. The nurses?
What?
I guess they're saying that they're insane, like a bunch of crazy people made this video game, dude.
I loved that. That's great, but I love the all the story stuff is like almost standard fare for an NES manual. But what really let me know that whoever's writing this is in on the joke was the description of like the regular and goofy control schemes. It's just like, yeah, this is this and this is that, and if that makes absolutely no sense to you, please look at the chart below. And I'm like, okay. This guy gets it. He's writing it from a place of like understanding, as opposed to many of these manuals is just like goddamn nonsense. So I appreciated that.
For a game titled Skate or Die, it does get the vibe really right. Like it does have an appropriate setting and from the box, its art itself, to the manual, to the language in the game, to the feeling of playing these skateboarding events. I feel like it is a pretty complete package from EA/Konami, whichever one we decided we want to judge.
Yeah, especially compared to the prior rendition that we've seen, which was a joke. So this is leaps and bounds better of a skateboarding simulation that we've seen on the NES.
I want to tell you guys a story about EA versus Epix versus Atari. Okay, and it all has to do with Skate or Die. So I hope you're ready for the ride.
Okay.
Electronic Arts founder Trip Hawkins. That's his name, Trip Hawkins. That's pretty cool.
Sounds like a skater.
Yeah, I think so. He was looking for a way to capitalize off the success of the Epyx sports games. I say Epyx, you guys know it's EPYX. You take your guess. I'm going to say Epyx going forward. Anyway, right around the same time that they were looking, that Trip Hawkins was looking for a way to make these Epyx-style sports games, several Epyx programmers and graphic artists quit over Epyx's decision to bring the Atari Corporation to market and manufacture their console project, okay? Epyx was working on a console of their own, later known as the Atari Lynx, so I don't know what they were so upset about. And a bunch of Epyx programmers get upset, and they leave, and EA is like, hold on a minute, I'm trying to make a game that's like Epyx, why don't I just hire these guys? So he finds out about them leaving, hires them for the purpose of producing a sports series of games for Electronic Arts. And then the producer of the game, Don Traeger, who came from Epyx, said that he was inspired by the coin-operated skateboarding game from Atari called 720. 720 is a game that is often compared to Skate or Die, but I think it really just comes from the confusion that the 720 coin op actually says in spoken word, skate or die. is yelled onto the screen. So how can Don Traeger pretend that he was only inspired by 720 when he literally stole the game name from a phrase inside of that other game?
That sounds fishy to me.
The whole thing's a mess, and it's just the beginning of EA's shady tactics in video games. Finally, something substantial for the development section of these
That wasn't
video
a
games.
quote, though. That wasn't a quote.
No quotes, but I think that's a pretty good story because if you think about it, a lot of bad businesses was done there, and nobody sued anybody. Nobody complained. Somehow Atari wound up making a console out of it.
Got that Wild West.
Yep, anything can happen. And speaking of anything, I do mean anything can happen because this is just the beginning of the Skate or Die series. We have a few sequels and spin-offs, like Ski or Die, the winter version of Skate or Die. Yeah, Ski or Die. It happened. It happens.
There is much less of a rebellious, scrappy, characterization of skiing. I think that's more of a rich boy thing.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And we will be playing on the NES Skate or Die 2.
The sequel.
The sequel, which has nothing in common with Skate or Die 1 except for name because it's actually an adventure-style game.
That's interesting.
Wow.
I'm down. I'm down for it. I mean, maybe they'll fix the controls a little bit. The game itself, I'm interested. Then we have 2 Game Boy games, Skate or Die Bad and Rad. I think you have to say rad like bad, but I would say it more like bad and rad.
That's the same.
Sounds the same to me.
No. Like Bad and Rad and Bad and Rad.
So just a very slight emphasis on rad.
Yeah, you get it. In this one, it's like a weird action platformer. It's not trying to take the Skate or Die thing from the NES and just port it to Game Boy. We have an action platformer where the player controls an unnamed skateboarder whose quest is to rescue Miss Ariel from the antagonist, El Rad the Evil One. We didn't need a story. We did not need a story.
You know they're going to put it in the manual.
It's time for a skateboard adventure, a proper skateboard adventure.
Skate or Die Underground.
Ooh,
and then we have, I like that. Skate or Die Underground. That's what we need.
Skate or Die Underground 2.
And then we have Skate or Die Toward to Thrash. Can we get some credit for that title? I mean, they're really pulling out every stop.
Yeah. This is the 90s. This is peak 90s right now.
And Toward to Thrash is more like the original Skate or Die that we are reviewing here today. And the only thing I could find on the game otherwise is that it's sponsored by Santa Cruz Skateboards, but I can't confirm that. I don't know why that's on Wikipedia, but I couldn't find anything else about it being sponsored. Needed. Yeah, it just seemed bizarre. And that's it for sequels and spin-offs. We were going to get a reboot of Skate or Die back in 2002, which I will link I'll link in the show notes. But it was going to be on Xbox and PS2. It was going to be made by EA. I think they needed it. But I'm sure EA has a Skate series, right? Are they the ones who make Skate? No. Or publish it? Or publish it, rather?
Might publish. I'm not sure, though. I never played the Skate games.
Well, Skate or Die never came back. But one thing that comes back every single episode, it's just something that we do every episode. It's a little thing called the Essential Games List where we vote on whether a game is still essential long after it's been released. I mean, this game came out in December of 88, and now in December of 2020, believe it or not, December 25th, that's right, this is our Christmas episode. We are doing the Essential Games List. Ho, ho, ho. All right, guys, it's time for the Essential Games List. Maybe try to be a little merry and bright in this edition. So, Sean, you go first.
I'm very jolly. This game is very jolly. I've been very kind to this game. It's definitely more of a skateboarding game than Town and Country Wooden Water Warriors, but it's still. I mean, there's no world that this is essential. The half pipe freestyle thing is cool. It's basically like playing the lo-fi version of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1, but that's really just 3 minutes of your time. Like, that's all you need. You did it. This game is not essential. Happy holidays.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm pretty sure you just hurt the feelings of, like, anyone who just opened up this game for Christmas. You know,
Yeah.
like, they're like, oh, I'm so excited. Oh, and Nostalgia released a new episode all about it. Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Mom, do you have the gift receipt?
Yeah, the gift receipt. Yeah.
Anyway, Sam, your turn.
My turn. All right, keep it jolly. All right. So this game has a lot of pep, and I really like that about it. And it's like you skate around to get to each event, and that's cool, and it's colorful, and it's vibrant, and the animations look good and everything. But it's just a collection of these janky little mini games that they don't feel good to play, and it's not fun to play. So, it's not going to be essential. I would say if they had maybe focused on one or two of these mini games instead and really honed in on the controls, I think maybe we could have had an excellent NES skateboarding game. But where it is right now, I gotta say no.
Understood. And that means that it is impossible to get on the Essential Games List. My advice here is to have yourself a merry little video game. Let your heart delight. But from now on, Skate or Die is not on the Essential Games List. And so we'll have to get along somehow. But have yourself a merry little video game. Maybe something like Super Mario Brothers or Duck Hunt.
That's beautiful, Mike.
Anyway, to give the real review, though, for a second, if you could rewire your brain so that you could understand 5 different control schemes on the fly, I feel like this game could be a great game for you, and you would totally want it. And then you'd also have to convince yourself that those 5 different control schemes are, like, worth it. You know? Like, I'm not even saying that, like, the boundary to learn them was too high, so I'm out. I'm saying that you then have to also say, like, oh, this was the right decision. Like, they made the right call here by making the game so different between game modes that I'm really feeling like I'm earning something by learning all these different things. It's not going to happen. Don't kid yourself. Don't kill yourself either. But you know, that was weird. I said don't kill yourself, and then I changed it, and then I had to go back and make sure that I said it.
You can't skate. You don't really have a choice.
There you go. That's the save I was looking for.
Yeah.
You know, we chose to die tonight, if you think about it. We chose not to skate ever again. It's not on the Essential Games List, so that means that we'll probably never play it again. We have many more NES games to go through. And we also have, you know, the end of the season coming up. It's the end of the holiday season now that Christmas is here, but it's also the end of 1988 as we know it. There's very few games left, and that means the best of 88 is right around the corner, folks. Who's excited? Okay, that's great. I'm sure the listeners were clapping because I know for a fact several listeners have written into me. At the end of every episode, they clap. They just like go into
send you a
standing
file,
ovation.
Like a wave file of them clapping.
No, it's like you don't get like when the plane lands in America, only in America. But when the plane lands, everybody claps, right? But nobody like records that. It's the same thing with nostalgia. We will keep recording episodes, though, and we will have a very special New Year's Day episode next week featuring Superman. That's right, just to make it more
He's
America.
He's going to be on the show?
He's going to be on the show in the sense that we'll be talking about him, not in the sense that he'll be joining us.
Oh.
I feel like he has things to do. And also, like, is Superman powerful at all in the winter if he, like, relies on the power of the sun?
Is that a thing?
Yeah,
the sun's still there. It's
just a little further away.
Colder.
I know, but like
the southern hemisphere in the winter.
Yeah, that'd be cool. It's like Superman in Georgia. Like they never show him doing anything there.
Well, Metropolis.
If you look at certain
Atlanta,
maps,
right?
Yeah, that must be what it is. Metropolis is based off of Atlanta.
It's still not the southern hemisphere. Okay.
I think if you look at certain world maps, Sam, you'll find it in your heart that only America is on those maps.
Only America's on the maps. The South of America is the southern hemisphere. Fight me.
Okay. If anybody wants to fight Sean, write in. That'd be an interesting thing to write about us.
His address is in the show notes.
Yeah, his address is in the show notes. But also, like, write into our Twitter account at NostalgiaCast. We're always doing these long post shows, but the end goal is always the same. Write to us, talk to us, let us know you're out there. We need at least one listener each episode. Otherwise, we won't know if anybody's listening. How sad would that be on Christmas Day and no one's listening?
We'll have to turn the whole thing off.
Yeah. So the best gift you can give Nostalgia this holiday season, even though I said it's over, if you wanted to just extend it for a little bit, the best gift you could give is tell a friend about Nostalgia. I'm Michael Esposito. You can find Nostalgia at NostalgiaCast on Twitter. You can find me at Esposito Film on Twitter. And I'll be talking to you all very soon.